a boxing betting expert.
I know, David.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He really gets into the nitty-gritty of this whole thing.
Nick, I'm delighted to have some time with you because you're very new on my radar. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking up a women's fight that was going down. I think it was a Thursday afternoon in France. It was kind of niche, but I had a strong view on it. And I went to the internet, went to Twitter, and I said, who's going to give me a decent preview in this one? And I found you, and I absolutely loved your breakdown. I love how you talk about studying tape like the old school guys. I love your understanding of the mechanics of boxing, but also the betting element. So I instantly said, right, I've got to get this guy on. I've got to talk to him. So thanks a lot for joining me today, Nick.
David, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the platform. I appreciate you even coming across my video. I think I'm kind of very small channel, just started about 6 weeks ago, only about 250 subscribers, which I love. And I appreciate every single one of those subscribers. But I think I'm slightly becoming known for the more niche fights in boxing, the women's boxing, the smaller weight classes of boxing, and the Elif Nur Tehran and Rima Ayadi fight. It was great to crack tape on that. And I honestly, searching through YouTube, I think I was the only official prediction on YouTube for that one. And I was pretty happy about the money that we got, man. We got Elif Nur Tehran at plus money by knockout. Absolutely incredible fight. And the fight was lined incredibly wrong from the jump, minus 200 by closing.
Yeah, she started off as the underdog. There's a huge money movement. And so I studied a little bit of tape of her. And you don't get a lot of big punches in the women's sport. And she's a natural puncher. And I was like, oh, I want to see this. So I actually was trying to find some second opinions, and yeah, I found you. So I'm really excited to learn about your background. Like, as you say, you're new on the scene. You're already sort of getting a lot of momentum. So do you remember, like, as a kid, what is your first memory of boxing? What, the first fight you saw?
Absolutely. So my mom had a lot of friends over to drink and have a good time. And they had the Oscar De La Hoya versus Fernando Vargas fight. I was maybe 6 or 7 at the time, and him dropping Vargas in the later rounds. I remember being 6 or 7 at the time, knowing clearly nothing about boxing, nothing about the mechanics, and just watching it and just being enamored by the lights, the show itself. And then Oscar De La Hoya coming and knocking him the way he did in round 11. I just remember it so clearly, how all of my mom's friends absolutely exploding, just seeing the smile on my mom's face. It was just one of those moments that to this day gives me chills and goosebumps, makes my hair stand up. So Oscar De La Hoya versus Fernando Vargas, my first ever boxing memory.
And do you remember it being a grudge match as well? Because that was one of the proper grudge matches back then.
That is the one thing. I was too young to know any of this. I didn't know the buildup. I was only 6 or 7 years old. But all of my mom's friends let me know what time it was, because my mom, I love her to death. She gave me a lot of freedom in my lifetime from a very young age. So she didn't really censor me from anything. So all of her friends let me know about the time, of what time this fight was. I just remember everybody going crazy for that fight. And I remember in the house, we actually had people gambling against each other on the fight, which makes me laugh because I want to know what the odds on that fight were, because they were giving each other even money.
Of course. Yeah, I don't think Oscar would have been even money. So Oscar was kind of in his prime, just coming to the end of it slightly. Do you remember sort of seeing him, like the Pacquiao fight? Were you old enough for that one? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember the Pacquiao fight. I remember the Floyd Mayweather fight. It kind of started a trend in my household to where my mom would have a lot of her friends over, and they would all order pay-per-views, whether that was from MMA or boxing pay-per-views. So I give my mom a lot of the respect and credit that she deserves for kind of getting me into the first jumping scenes of fighting, just making sure that I don't want to say making sure that I was into it, but her and her friends were into it. So just naturally being downstairs and watching it with them, I loved it itself. So I absolutely remember Oscar De La Hoya's later years. Oscar De La Hoya, I think, is an incredible promoter. I want to say that. And I think I could be a little bit biased due to my first memory of him as a promoter due to that. So,
no, I'm a big fan. The last fight I went to in Vegas was De La Hoya Mayweather, 2007. I had a really good seat. And I was convinced, I was a De La Hoya fan. I was convinced he'd done enough to win from my seat. And then I don't know if you remember, but the whole MGM thought he'd been robbed. And I watched it back.
I remember very clearly. It was a big controversy, but when you watch the fight back,
that was a big sort of development for me when I said, watching a fight live with all that's going on is so different to what a judge is seeing when they're just content. I saw a totally different fight, and it was my pocket talking as well, because I backed De La Hoya and I wanted him to win.
I think that's interesting to talk about. I always say I watch fights with green goggles when I have money on them. And one thing about watching fights with green goggles, I'm actually more in the sinister mind state. I always think my fighter is behind. I never think my fighter is ahead. I'm always in the mind state that, oh my God, he's down by 2 rounds right now. I need to finish. I need to finish. And that could just definitely be, that's why I love rewatching fights and tape studying, because after the fact, and I can simmer down, there's no emotion on the line. I love rewatching them for that reason.
So how do you feel about, I love to score the fights as well. How do you feel about scoring a fight when you know the result? Do you think that tarnishes what you're doing?
So before I do my tape study here so this is kind of how I do my tape study, just to give you a quick little dive. I go to YouTube and I go to Daily Motion.
Yeah.
And even if I know the fighter win or loss, I never look at the scorecards before I actually do the breakdown and tape. So I'll search the fighter themselves. So for example, I just dropped Yoshiki Takai versus Christian Jimenez Medina. And I went to Daily Motion and YouTube. I searched their names and I found as many fights as I could. Then I compare it with BoxRec. So I think naturally in your brain, it's kind of hard to get past that bias if you know what the scorecard is. But if you find ways to manipulate your own mind and just watch them, kind of going into a movie without watching the trailer, if you manipulate your mind into it, it's a little bit easier to score that way. So
yeah, absolutely. But I also think it's essential, like so many people don't score the fights that they feel so strongly about. And also you'll see a lot of people saying that was an absolute robbery and they've got like 115, 113 or something. You're like, well, do you realize how close that is? And you can either get lopsided, 118, 110, and it still be the round still be incredibly close.
Yeah, that is an issue I actually have amongst the boxing contingents, is that anytime the fighter they had money on or anyone that they thought won the fight lost a close fight, they're going to call it a robbery. You had with Subriel Matias versus Albert Puello, who I thought Subriel Matias clearly won that 7-5. A lot of people were calling that a robbery. It's like, guys, a fight that can be 7-5 either way, a possible draw is not a robbery.
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember that was controversial. I can't remember how I had it. So it was your mother who got you into sport. What about the betting side of things? Who got you? So you saw them doing the even money wagers, but how did you get sort of seriously into the betting?
So I'll tell you how I got unseriously into betting. That kind of leads me into the more serious side of it. So huge Arizona Cardinals fan. Arizona Cardinals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers when we lost. I bet in 6th grade someone $20 on the Arizona Cardinals. First ever wager I've ever made. I'll never forget it. And Bovada.lv is an offshore's book site. And when I was 17 years old, I got a job. I got a job working in a restaurant, and the cook where I worked in the restaurant had a betting LV account, or a Bovada LV account. So at 17 years old, I made an offshore account, illegal as hell at 17 years old. But, it's how a lot of gamblers do start naturally. They find these 18 plus casinos and kind of go in there and play $5 slots at 16 years old. And I bet my first ever $20 on Bovada LV, actually on football, on the Jaguars plus 17.5 spread versus the Tennessee Titans. And it lost. They got smoked by the Titans by 21 points. It lost. And I never went back to betting for, I would say, about 2 years. And then at 19 years old, I went back to Bovada. And this is before it became legalized on stateside books in the US. So I went back to Bovada at 19 years old. And I had a really bad losing year. I don't want to say really bad, but, I lost a few $100 for a 19 years old. That's a lot of money for me specifically. And then once the offshore books kind of came on, I just kind of started hitting the books heavier and heavier. And I've had a lot of losing years up until the last 2 years. I have finally found a winning formula over the last 2 years. And the winning formula for me is pretty simple. Stop making parlays. The minute I stopped making parlays is the minute I started winning. I find props. I hone in on boxing and MMA props, unders for rounds, so on and so forth. And if it's a good minus even money line, minus 115, minus 130, I'll hammer it. And that's how I win my best money. Every time I lose, it's almost always based off a parlay. So
in the money line, when are you avoiding the short price favorites and the big underdogs? Are you trying to find as close to even money wherever you can?
So that really comes down to the tape. So if I find an underdog that I really like, it's hard not to take some of these underdogs. For example, Tyree Jones versus Christopher Rios last week. I thought it was more of a 55-45 fight in favor of Rios, and he was a plus 320 underdog, so I had to take that. But in fights that are a little bit more close, 50-50, like Yoshiki Takai versus Christian Medina Jimenez. Yoshiki Takai is a minus 500 favorite. I think that line is way off, but I do think Takai can get him out of there. And Takai by knockout is plus 180. And I really like that line. I really like a plus 180 line. So I try to find value in anything I can. I will tell you what I stay away from. I stay away from anything minus 180 and higher. It's a very unpopular strategy. I don't like parlaying two minus 200 favorites. I don't like parlaying a minus 180 favorite. I'd rather find even money on a straight bet and keep it moving that way, or find plus money on a straight bet and keep it moving that way. Now, unless we're talking about something that I feel overly confident in. For example, if you were to get Moses Ayatuma at a great number, and parlay that with Nick Ball, two guys I was fairly confident that would win, and then you parlay that with Raymond Ford, and if that gives you an even money bet, that's a parlay that I feel a little bit safer than, but I would never recommend it or give it out on my channel as a play, just because it's not my personal betting style.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I actually love that stuff. I will happily put 3 short price favorites into a 3-fold parlay to get around even money. Like, that's my bread and butter. I love that stuff. But you got to see it for the long game, though.
I will say for professional gamblers, it seems like a great betting strategy. And it's just one thing that I've gotten burned on far too many times.
Yeah.
I feel something is super safe and it turns out to not be so safe. But that's also a big thing too, is I will never put my money on a sport I know nothing about, on a fight I haven't cracked the tape on myself. Yeah. And I will never trust anyone else's word without cracking my own tape. That is the biggest thing. Yeah. You can take anyone's opinions for a country mile, but you have to go and crack your own tape to make a real actual assessment.
Do you know what I'll do? Like, I sometimes I will listen to someone like you break down a fight and just go, yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes complete sense. And if I hear like 2 or 3 other people independently saying the same thing, I'm like, I'm going to back that. And I might not know anything about the fight. I just trust some people just know what they're talking about, and I just trust them. And I'm like, I would happily follow your advice on some fights that I have no idea about, just because I know your approach and I know your track record, and I'm like, yeah, that's good for me. You've done the hard work for me.
Thank you.
That's the whole point of your channel, I guess.
No, absolutely. I don't think people understand. I work a full-time job, and I crack anywhere from 20 to 35 hours of tape weekly. That's not an exaggeration. Amazing. I'm cracking tape anywhere from 20 to 35 hours. Just, my life really revolves around walking my dog, working, and cracking tape, which I'm a very minimalist human being. I don't need much to keep me satisfied, so I'm completely okay with that. And I love cracking tape at the end of the way. It's more of a passion than anything. I'm not looking for the growth in numbers, which of course I want to grow in numbers, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to give the best quality breakdowns I can.
It's brilliant. And I will never get bored of you saying cracking tape. Like, the fact that you still call it tape is wonderful. Never stop that.
I'm an old school cat, man. I mean, I got some notes right here, and I use it on pen and paper still. I still use pen and paper. My hands cramp up from some of the scribbles I make. I have to go back and say, what the hell did I even write here? Because I'm scribbling so excited.
If you were 7 when De La Hoya was fighting Vargas, you don't even know what VHS is.
Well, that's actually where you have me confused, mate. My oldest brother is 10 years old, and I was partially raised by my grandmother. So the room that I was raised in, this is not an exaggeration. My grandfather put racks on every single wall, and the room I was raised in literally had half a wall of VHSs, half a wall of classic DVDs. I am a die-hard movie nerd. Fun fact.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
So beyond just boxing, I absolutely love movies. I love all things martial arts, but I absolutely love movies.
Brilliant. Okay, so have you ever boxed?
So my combat sports background is limited to, I'm a jiu-jitsu blue belt, so I'm actually a grappler by trade, which is actually pretty hilarious. And I've done kickboxing and Muay Thai at a small mom and pop gym. So I've never actually boxed. I've taken some boxing classes, but never had a sanctioned boxing match. And I've only done light boxing sparring, kickboxing and Muay Thai sparring. I've competed in quite a few jiu-jitsu competitions, not to the greatest degree, to be honest with you. But so I do have some combat sports background, but I've never actually boxed. And I never want to take away credit from true boxers that are actually doing the grind. So,
And so do you cover the MMA in your betting as well?
So that's actually how I got my start in YouTube. Combat Sports Today gave me a chance really to give my thoughts on MMA fights. And I like MMA. I actually love MMA, but I'm not as sharp when it comes to MMA betting. For whatever reason, there's just so many variants in MMA fight. There's so much variance in MMA fight. You could have a fighter that's up 2 rounds and get flash head kicked or break his leg while throwing a leg kick. Or you have someone that essentially gasses themselves out and quits via gas out tap. So I like MMA. I've trained it far more than I've ever trained boxing, which is hilarious. But I'm far more sharp with my eyes when it comes to boxing. So
fair enough. That's what you're saying. You like concentrating on the one sport. And so since the Oscar fight, who's been your favorite boxer to watch over the last 20 years? Then, since you've been following it.
All right. So my favorite boxer of all time, if I may start, is the greatest minimum weight of all time, Benito Lopez. Benito
Okay.
Lopez is just art in motion. If you haven't had a chance to check out Benito Lopez, anybody watching this, please go watch his old school fights. He is by definition art in motion. The way he moves around the ring, his same side punching, his mechanics are flawless. He retired, if I'm not mistaken, 52-0, and these aren't fluke wins. He is the greatest minimum weight of all time. Since then, boxers today. Subriel Matias is one of my favorite fighters just because I love his forward pressure style, the way he comes forward, bears down on you, completely breaks you down pillar to post. Not the most technical fighter, but always willing to brawl. Jesse Bam Rodriguez. I love Jesse Bam Rodriguez. He is absolutely incredible. Technical prowess, pound for pound, in my personal opinion right now. Clearly of the greats, I love Naoya Inoue. As we talked about here, my dog's name is Inoue himself. So I love Naoya Inoue specifically. And in the heavyweight division, I'm a big fan of Ajit Kaya Bell right now. I call him legit Ajit for a reason. And I called him to beat Frank Sanchez and Makhmudov at underdog money. I think he is going to be a lineal and a unified heavyweight champion here come at some point. Big fan of Ajit Kaya Bell right now.
And he doesn't get mentioned that much. So it seems you
never gets mentioned. And I also think he's Usyk's biggest problem right now. He may not be the best mover, but his continuous body punching will always be an issue for Usyk.
Wow. Yeah. Love it. And so you have a great affection for the lower weights. Do you prefer the lower weights to the heavyweights?
100%. I love the lower weight classes. I think it's the perfect mix of tenacity, technique, and there's also some power in the lower weight classes that aren't spoken about enough. You know, being an American and an American boxing fan, there aren't a great amount of Americans at the lower weights that are succeeding. We're going to see someone like Anthony Olasquaga today, who is an American that fights in Japan that is succeeding at the lower weight classes. But beyond that, we don't have too many Americans succeeding at the lower weight classes. So me as an American boxing fan, I would like to put on other fans that aren't as familiar with Japanese, Filipino, these just smaller, lower weight class boxers that I don't think get enough love. So I highly prefer the lower weight classes, even though when we talk about, even though when we talk about the most stacked divisions, I don't necessarily think all the most stacked divisions are at the lower weight classes, but I'm just a big fan of them.
So it was your preview on, I might pronounce it, Rivera Cordova, was that last weekend?
Yeah, I got that one plastering wrong. I thought Yanquiel Rivera was going to get him out of there. I was pretty confident in that. And Angelino Cordova came in there and they made it a wrestling match. So it was the
strangest fight.
It was hard. That's the one thing is I can crack all the tape for boxing that I want, but when that happens, when it becomes a clinch fest for 6+ rounds, multiple head clashes, multiple points that should be deducted, I can't crack tape for that. But that's easily one of the worst takes I've ever had on my boxing channel, and I'll own up to that.
No, but your preview made me watch that fight, and also I think Cordova came out in the first round and he swung some windmill shots that missed by about 3 feet. He did a 3-punch, and Rivera literally laughed, and I thought he was joking, but that's literally how he fights.
He literally, again, I kept telling people, man, Cordova is not necessarily skilled. He's there to fight and he's gritty, but he's so hittable. And I'm not trying to sound disparaging whatsoever. He was multiple weight classes away from Yanquiel Rivera. And the fact that Yanquiel Rivera didn't treat him as such, bad take on my end.
It was a draw. They scored a draw, didn't they?
Yeah, they scored it a draw, which if they would have gave it to Cordova, I wouldn't even have been mad at it because Yanquiel Rivera looked stuck in the mud round 7 through 12. He didn't even seem to want to fight, and he was just getting frustrated by the repeated headbutts and the repeated clinches.
I just because Cordova was so unimpressive with his technique. It was so hard to give him rounds, even though he was probably winning. It was if anyone's interested in learning to score fights, I'd pick that one and say, go and try and score that fight. It was incredibly difficult to score.
It's one of those tit for tat fights that's incredibly hard to score just because there's no boxing points to make of the fight itself specifically here. So it was one of those, again, one of the worst calls I've ever given out. I'm going to take that on the chin every single time. I still think Yanquiel Rivera is a better class than that, but he's going to have to show me in his next fight specifically. So,
well, you're owning up to a bad call, but I can vouch for the run you're on. It's been you're on a hot streak at the moment. It's some of the stuff you've got right recently has been amazing. So, in terms of the boxing, there's a lot of controversy. We've talked about scorecards, and is there a single rule that you would like to change or add to the sport that you think would improve it?
Absolutely. The IBF rehydration clause. We have guys going out there putting their literal life on the line. Boxers are literally putting their life on the line. And we have sanctioning bodies saying, hey, guys, you need to cut X amount of weight, but you can't blow up to your back to your natural weight class. You need to weigh in 10 pounds less before the fight actually starts. I despise the IBF rehydration clause. I understand why some people like it. They think it keeps it more of a fair playing field. But guys, these high-level combat sports athletes are going to get the best edge they can regardless, whether that is extreme weight cutting, whether that is, I hate to say it, PED use. It's going to happen in this sport. So there is no reason that the IBF that makes their sanctioning body get lesser known fights due to it need to have that 10-pound rehydration clause. You would have so many better title fights for the IBF if it wasn't for that 10-pound rehydration clause. I think Bachram would have an incredible unification fight right now. He's settling for Josh Kelly, which is a good fight regardless, but we could have had a unification fight at 154 if it wasn't for that rehydration clause.
So I think you made a really good point in one of your recent, it might have been the one that you did in the last couple of days actually, about there were 2 deaths on a Japanese card about a month ago, right? On one card.
On the same card, and there have been 3 deaths within in that same month and a half span too.
In Japan. Yeah. Now, I saw one of the fights. It was absolutely horrific, and you could just see, it was just horrific to watch. But you also I came to the conclusion, I've not seen it manifest itself yet, but I think we're going to see early stoppages on the back of that. Just because
I am so glad. Okay, I'm sorry for jumping in, David. You got me so excited saying that, because a big reason for my 2 Japanese predictions I just dropped this weekend, part of that portion, which I am slapping myself for not saying in the actual portion of the videos, I think that's going to be huge in Japan upcoming, is that they are going to be far more cognizant of stopping these fights early. That is just one thing to note. I'm so sorry for jumping in there. It got me so excited. As you can tell from my channel, I'm naturally a very excited person, but very passionate.
You did say it. I have seen it in one of your videos. So like, I'm like, I wrote that.
I'm glad that I brought it up then.
You did. Yeah, you definitely said credit where it's due. You said, so I think I'm even expecting to see it like globally, that surely as a referee, you're aware of that. And, you know, that referee, I don't want to blame anyone, but it looked like he could have stepped in there a little bit sooner, maybe. And, you know, if you're a referee, you're going to be taking the cautious approach, at least for the next 6 months or, you know, until that sort of. And again, it's a little bit sad that horrific evening or 3 fights in Japan, they don't get that much attention, really. The world just moves on, you know.
What I found is that they don't do plasticity tests with the brain, a simple plasticity brain scan, which can show how hydrated and how lubricated the brain is, which is huge. The craziest thing is the fact they did not have an ambulance at the fight ready to go for anything under 12 rounds. Yeah. What are we doing here? It doesn't matter if it's a 4-round fight. There needs to be medical personnel staff. And we're talking about Japan, one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. It's mind-blowing that they are so far behind when it comes to the medical advances in this case.
It's one of those ones that boxing fans, so I watched the fights and I watched it appalled, disgusted, horrified, upset, all these things. And you're like, this is the sport I love, but this young man's lost his life. And then a few weeks later, we're cheering, shouting, knock him out. You know, we forget it and we move on and enjoy the sport. But it's like you say, it's why you have respect for these guys getting in the ring at whatever level.
It doesn't matter if they're sparring in a gym. It doesn't matter if they're doing it at the highest and professional level. You have to respect these fighters. That's why I try my best not to be too disparaging. It happens at times where I can be disparaging, but you know, something I'm working on as I get older, of course. Well,
sometimes you're breaking down a fight and you literally give someone no chance. And it's quite hard to explain that without coming across a little bit disparaging, but you're trying to be honest about what the actual probabilities are. So
I think we saw that in the first fight that you came across with the Alipner Tehran versus Rima Ayadi. I really didn't give Rima Ayadi much of a chance whatsoever. And I tried my best in my breakdown to not be disparaging to Rima Ayadi in that sense. So,
And, okay. So on that, what do you think, like go back a few years or more recently, what has been your best hot take where you're like, I know what I'm doing here, pat myself on the back, nailed it?
Is this more so? I wouldn't say necessarily best hot take, but there are a few calls that I've gotten right that I've been very proud of. Subaru Mateus by decision over Albert Puello. Again, close fight, so not too rough. I will say the takes that I'm overly confident in. Moses Ayatuma under 4.5. I was screaming to the high heavens. You go to my Twitter and you can literally search Ayatuma's name and White's name, and you'll see over 7 tweets screaming to the high heavens. Guys, there is nothing White has to offer for Ayatuma. He gets him out of there under 4 rounds, guaranteed. Possibly 1. I guess my best hot take that I've taken as of recently is the fact that Rolly Romero would beat Ryan Garcia. I was very confident that Rolly Romero would beat Ryan Garcia. Just because
Are they rematching?
I don't know what's actually going to happen in the case of Rolly Romero. I would like to see Rolly Romero versus Manny Pacquiao. If they're really going to sanction Manny Pacquiao as a #1 rated contender, let me see Rolly Romero versus Manny Pacquiao for a true meme fight, a true meme fight. But I don't believe they are rematching. Ryan Garcia has one more fight on his Golden Boy contract, and I have a feeling that Golden Boy is going to give him one of the toughest fights possible, unless he sits out and waits this fight out, or sits out and waits his contract out.
It was like plus 800, massive underdog, wasn't he?
You could have gotten Rolly Romero as an underdog into round 10. Wow. I got Rolly Romero by decision at plus 1,400 pre-fight. I got him by decision live at plus 2,000. I got his money line at plus 600, 500, 220, and 150. Wow. I literally, that was one of my biggest. I emptied the roll on him after that knockdown. I emptied the roll on him, to say the least.
So you're like, that is a brilliant bet. Like the Atuma in one round, you don't forget that one. Everyone saw that coming. This is what you should be talking about, because that was the Times Square one where there was a zero atmosphere, right?
One of the worst boxing cards I've ever seen to this day, by a country mile. But
you didn't care because you had this brilliant bet going.
Yeah, I was pretty happy about that one. I think live betting is always the way to go with boxing. I'm also very proud of my Subriel Matias versus Albert Puello by decision. It was Subriel Matias at plus 550. The reason I'm so proud of that fight, it was Subriel Matias' first win by decision ever. He's never won by decision ever. Every single one of his wins has been by stoppage. He's never gone all 12 rounds. He's fighting a tricky southpaw and Albert Puello that a lot of people thought was going to school him because he's so much better of a boxer. And Subriel Matias being a personal favorite fan of mine, it felt like the easiest plus 550 we could ever get. It literally felt like the easiest plus 550 we could ever get. Breaking down, I guess you could say unit bets for me. I put 4 units on Subriel Matias by decision. I was overly confident, plus 550. Great bet. I was extremely proud of that call. Unfortunately, it was before I started the Breaking Bad Boxing channel, so I gave it out on my buddy's channel. But I'm still have the proof and proud, and I'm proud of that.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. And then you've said more recently that I think you've called it the toughest prediction you've ever made is the Martinez and Billy fight. Is that this weekend? Next weekend?
By a country mile, that is it's this weekend, actually. It's this Saturday. Best fight on the Canelo Crawford undercard. It's not even close to the toughest fight I've ever had to predict. And the reason is both fighters do things so similarly and so differently. What do they do so similarly? They're both great punchers, heavy punchers. They're mean. They want to have a firefight. They have limited footwork. Neither of them are going to try to box on the back foot, quite frankly. I think Lester Martinez is the more efficient boxer, the more efficient puncher. I think he has the better jab, better at range control. But Christian Mabili has one thing that I think a lot of boxers lack. He's willing to drown with you. He is saying, let's drive a boat to the middle of the ocean. Let's jump off and let's see who drowns first. And Christian Mabili on the inside, he is one hell of a fighter to deal with. He puts combinations together and he rips up the body from pillar to post. And this fight is, again, they're different in the sense that Lester is so much less higher volume than Mabili is, and he's so much more efficient with his punching. And I do think he's a bigger puncher than Mabili, who Mabili we have seen get cracked. But again, Mabili is so tough, great pace, great cardio, so willing to drown. This fight is something to love here. So I took, like I said, over a 10-round fight, which it is listed as of right now. Books have it as a 12-round fight. Netflix and Tadum have it as a 10-round fight.
Yeah.
So if we're going off what Netflix has it listed as a 10-round fight, I'm taking the draw. In a 12-round fight, I'm taking Mabili decision.
Whoa, yeah. I got 12 rounds here.
See, all the bookies have it as a 12-round fight. But if you go to Netflix and Zuffa Boxing Promotions, both of the posters they have listed have 10-round fights. And we've been seeing with the WBC lately that they have been doing 10-round interim title fights as compared to 12-round interim title fights.
Right.
So I highly recommend, before placing your bet, waiting to see what the official rounds are. If it's a 10-round fight, I love the draw. I can see Lester dropping Mabili early, but Mabili coming back with a storm, winning 6 of those 4 rounds with a drop. But I also think Mabili over 12 rounds looks incredibly well. I saw a little bit of tape on Lester Martinez versus Raiko Santana last night that I wish I would have taped before my preview and prediction that made me think that Christian Mabili may have some advantages that I thought even more exaggerated on the inside and the cardio and shape advantage. So I'm so excited for this fight. It's a cracker. I'm so sorry to rant so much on it, David. My apologies.
And this is another thing. It's like, I love the fact that you can do a preview and go, if it's 10 rounds, I like the draw. If it's 12 rounds, I like the decision, because there's logic to that. You think he's going to come on strong in the championship rounds. I think he's plus 350 to win a decision. He's like quite a heavy favorite. So again, you found plus money. Brilliant. I mean, this weekend is crazy. We've got like 25 fights or something. So give me a bad one where you've got it wrong.
Hey, we already discussed it a little bit, but I'm going to hang my hat on this, and I can't get over this. Two, actually. I'll give you two, actually, that also involves Ryan Garcia. I took Devin Haney by knockout over Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
Holy hell, what a horrendous take. I took Ryan Garcia by knockout. This is on the Combat Sports Today channel for a breakdown, clearly a few years ago when they fought. I took Devin Haney by knockout over Ryan Garcia. What a take. And then, of course, the Yanquiel Rivera over Cordova fight. I was overly confident that Yanquiel Rivera would get a knockout. I smashed that spot. The fight not to go the distance was my biggest bet of that month, actually. And bad beat, mate. Bad beat. Thankfully, we've had some good winning weeks since then to come back. But those are my two worst calls. Yanquiel Rivera by knockout over Cordova. It was hard to tape for a wrestling match. And then also calling Devin Haney by knockout over Ryan Garcia. What a horrible call.
Yeah, but I think your wins are outweighing your losses. So what about who is the most overrated boxer, either historically or currently active?
All right, you're going to hate this answer, mate. You're really going to hate this answer. I think you know where this is going because I know you said you're a super fan of him. Mike Tyson. Now,
no, I'm not. I was when I was a child.
Okay, I just want to say, because I feel this could be an unpopular opinion amongst the masses. Who has Mike Tyson beaten besides Michael Sting, an aged Joe, 37 years old at the time, and a bunch of average punchers? I just don't think Mike Tyson has the greatest resume top to bottom. So I'm going to be honest. Historically, I say Mike Tyson's one of the historically worst not worst. I don't want to say horrible take. I just think he's a top 15 heavyweight. I wouldn't put him in the top 10 of my heavyweight specifically. Yeah. And yeah, man, I just think he's beaten a bunch of aged journeymen specifically.
Mike Tyson's myth has grown. Like, if you look at his highlights, it's the most exciting thing you can watch, and it's brilliant. It's like, wow. And I guess kids coming up now will look at that and go, he's a monster. But you're right, he never beat it. He beat a 38-year-old and a light heavyweight, and whenever, I
think the Mike Spinks win is actually an underrated win. That's one win that I give him that's super underrated. But besides that, I don't give him much. I don't give him much else. Now, fighters today that are overrated, of a champion level, Jai Apatow. Now, we haven't seen Jai Apatow fight the highest level. It took him 5+ years to unify the actual cruiserweight division. He still hasn't fought in Zurdo Ramirez, who I think is a fight that I think Zurdo gives him a lot of problems. Yeah. Jai Apatow has been raged and ranted about by Eddie Hearn for ages as a boogeyman. And yes, great knockouts, devastating knockouts, but he hasn't fought in anybody. Yeah. Someone that's not on the championship level, that's a contender coming up that everybody seems to love, Shushu Carrington. I think Shushu Carrington, I really question his gears. I don't see a champion at 126 that he can beat. I think every champion at 126, Espinoza, Leo, Nick Ball, I think they all have the gears and all have the skill to beat him and beat him cleanly. Shushu Carrington, who we've seen Solomon Sagawa look incredibly well. I thought Solomon Sagawa won that fight, going life and death with a Costa and then going life and death with a Ghana and taxi driver. I'm just not overly high on Shushu Carrington myself. So I would say historically, Mike Tyson's my most overrated boxer. Current champion, I would say Jai Apatow. Yeah. And I would say, as a contender, Shushu Carrington.
So I agree with all of those except the third one because I've never seen him fight, but spot on. So it strikes me that there isn't a single fight at any level that you don't watch. Is there anything where you say this is not worth my while, or will you, if you can find it, will you watch it?
There was a fight this last weekend, Zachary P versus Frankie Story. Yeah. It was an 11-1 versus a 7-0 quote unquote prospects. When you go deep dive into the records, neither of them have fought a single fighter with a winning record. Those super, super low level fights, I may not tune into. I didn't tune into those ones. And I will never put my money on something that low level in domestic. When there's a domestic level, there is a promotional level, which is just above world-class and elite. Then there's a world-class level, and then there's below those levels. Anything below those levels, influencer fights, I stay away from. Yeah. Fights like that where guys have not a single fight with a winning record, which is funny for me to say betting on Elif Nur Tehran, but Elif Nur Tehran, quite frankly, could be unifying a title soon. So I'm completely okay with betting on that. So I try to stay away from those fights like the Zachary P versus Frank Stories of the world. But besides that, I try to indulge in all the boxing I can. I just love watching the sport. And I think you can also take away something from almost every fight. I think you can take away something from almost every fight.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So who's the most underrated sort of historically or active now?
So I want to say historically, I think Joe Calzaghe is a super underrated boxer. Retired undefeated, beat Bernard Hopkins, Roy Jones Jr. Quite frankly, the greatest British boxer of all time, in my personal opinion. Underrated amongst the pantheon of fans and not really known and given the respect he deserves. That's a really good question, I would say here. I think Ryosuke Nishida, which is only lost against Junto Nakatani, is super underrated, a really class-worthy boxer. Yoshiki Takai, that we're going to see versus Christian Medina Jimenez as the co-main event to Naoya Inoue, super underrated world-class boxer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry here. This is one question that I actually should have been a little bit more well-prepared for when it came to the underrated fighters.
I mean, I love your Calzaghe.
I also think Angelo Leo, too, as well, at 126 is a great champion, too. So that's who I would say are some underrated ones that come off the top of my head.
Great. It's great to get the Calzaghe respect because you're in Arizona, right?
Yep. Arizona, born and raised. So
Calzaghe over here, no one underrates him. Almost everyone I speak to, he's number one. And it's great that he's getting some respect from over there as well.
Dude, his wins against Left Hook Lacey, Kessler, moving up and beating Hopkins and Jones, which even if they were aged, and that Hopkins fight should have absolutely not been a split decision. Calzaghe, even with the drop in, I believe it was round 1, absolutely cleared that fight and came on the later rounds. So,
and Byron Mitchell knocked down. His first time he's knocked down, he looks really shaken. His natural reaction is to stop the fight within 30 seconds. It's brilliant. And okay, so it's not Iron Mike. So who's the best heavyweight of all time?
That is hard. I think George Foreman may be the most underrated heavyweight of all time.
Okay.
I think George Foreman may be the most underrated heavyweight of all time. My recency bias really wants to say the most unpopular opinion of all, Alexander Usyk, because I think the level of fighters that he's fought in since he's been at heavyweight has cleared most of the greatest champions of all time. Joe Frazier. So I would say those are some candidates right there. I'll say that. Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and give me a modern day hot take in Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, love it. Can't argue with that. So
who is if I may ask, who is your greatest heavyweight of all time? I would like to know.
It's boring, but it's Ali. I think I've got Ali at number 1. I've got Lennox Lewis very high.
Oh my God, I am so sorry. Lennox Lewis. Please forgive me because there are so many great heavyweights. Lennox Lewis, if he's not in your top 5, which the fact that I forgot him, please forgive me, y'all. Lennox Lewis, no doubt, is in my realistically top 3 pantheons of greatest heavyweights of all time.
I just wish Lennox, there were 2 phases to Lennox. Once he got knocked out by Oliver McCall, he became this sort of defensive, sort of Klitschko-esque, not quite, but like defensive first. And if he just had a little bit of hybrid of Mark 1 and Mark 2, he would have just been no question number 1. But because he was slightly too defensive in the second half of his career, that holds him back a little bit for me.
David, that tells me that you know what you're looking at just because you can see the nuances in the game, such as that. Seeing 2 separate levels and styles of fighters. My favorite thing to watch when I'm breaking down tape is watching round over round and fight over fight improvements. How do they look differently round over round or fight over fights? My favorite thing to see when I'm watching fighters, either younger or older, just love seeing that.
So for Crawford Alvarez this weekend, I've been looking at Alvarez's fights with Golovkin. And I've not watched them since they happened like almost 10 years ago. And the difference in Golovkin between fight 1 and fight 2, because I put them back to back. I watched the first 12 and I thought Golovkin won the first fight. And in the second fight, I go into round 13. I was like, Golovkin has slowed down. You can tell he's a different guy. And I was like, that's just in the first two fights. And when you put them so close together, you literally see the difference. So what have you got this weekend? Have you dropped a preview for this one yet? The big one?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think I am going to drop a preview for this one. I'm going to try to enjoy this as a boxing fan, as a pure pugilist. But if I'm going to give my outright prediction, I think the sports science of it is going to be hard for Terrence Crawford to get over. Canelo Alvarez has fought in at 168 and as high as 175 against bigger guys, pushing and pulling these bigger guys around, feeling their punches and punching with them. To be honest with you, I like Canelo by decision. I think it's going to be, let's look at the promotional aspects and the logistics of it outside of the actual tangibles of boxing.
Yeah.
Bud Crawford's going to have to be almost perfect to win this fight. He's going to have to either knock out Canelo, get a knockdown, and clearly win 8 rounds guaranteed, or he's not going to win this fight on the scorecards. Yeah. This is one of those fights that I think there are too many outside variables for me to feel confident putting my money anywhere. But if I had to put my money anywhere, it would be on Canelo by decision at plus money. I think that's going to give you the best value you can. I think they're both durable as hell. Canelo didn't get knocked down by Canelo didn't get finished by Dimitri Bivol, who is a way bigger puncher than Bud is, and he's just as technically a prowess of a fighter. So I have a hard time seeing Bud knocking down and/or dropping Canelo. And I have a hard time seeing Canelo finishing someone who's as skilled as Bud Crawford is. So I think the smartest bets would be the fight to go the distance. And I would like Canelo decision overall. If you're picking Bud Crawford, I can absolutely see why. Boxing pundits across. Because the one thing you have to ask yourself is they were the same size. How would you take this fight? If they were the same size, quite frankly, I would take Bud Crawford, but I think the sports science logistics means too much of it. Can't get past that size. Can't get past the durability of either fighter. I can't get past the fact that Canelo has been there and done that before at this weight class.
Okay, so I'm going to give you one of your mother's mates bets, $10. I'm going to give you $10. I'm going to take Bud. You take Alvarez. You're getting good value there because you're getting the favorite for $10, even money. I'm taking Crawford. I think you're right about the sports science, but I think that diminishes with age. I think as you get older, those discrepancies aren't as much of an advantage as you think they are. I think I've seen decline in Alvarez, not just in his last few fights, but for a long time. I think it's a paycheck fight for him. And I think there's something special about Crawford. And I don't see him stopping Alvarez. I think he might just do that, win 9 rounds, and they can't deny it. So I wish it was a bigger price. The odds aren't quite big enough.
That's a good point. I mean, it's not even plus 2-to-1 odds for Crawford. And David, I want you to know I'm a man of my word. I will be sending you that $10 if I lose. You have my absolute word on it. We will exchange messages on how that currency will like to be exchanged. And I want to say this too as well. I agree with the decline of Canelo. I truly agree with the decline of Canelo. I just can't get over the size discrepancy and how Bud even had issues pushing Madrimov around. In terms of skill for skill, I think Bud is that guy. I think Bud, he could do it all. He can pull and counter. He can cut and shoot. He can fight on the back foot, the front foot. He can fight from both stances. He can punch. He can punch with both hands. I love Crawford, man. He can do it all. But
I don't think I've ever seen someone who would he call him a switch hitter? I don't think I've seen anyone who fights from orthodox and southpaw in a way where he looks completely comfortable the same way as him.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's poetry in motion. And when he switches, it's no tell to his switch. He punches through his switches and stands comfortably, and he'll switch back from orthodox southpaw defensively while in the mix of a defensive mechanic. I really think even what was post-car crash Earl Spence, I truly believe that's one of the greatest single-handed boxing performances we've ever seen. It was truly a flawless performance. Flawless 7 rounds of boxing for Terrence Crawford.
So, in my study of tape, it was that fight and Alvarez beating a clearly shot-worn Golovkin. I was just like, their best wins. Bud's best win is better than I thought it was. Alvarez's best win is not as good as I thought it was. That was a long time. Anyway, it's a great one. I have a big problem with aging fighters beyond the age of 38. And we've got an article on my website. I'll send it to you about the 38-year-old rule. And there's literally a 38-year-old fall off. Muhammad Ali, all these guys, they fall off at 38. And Usyk's an exception. And I think Bud Crawford is an exception. Apart from that, you got Hopkins and almost no exceptions.
Please send me that article. I can't wait to read it. It's like it's Luke Thomas has a theory on the 35-year-old champions in MMA, 170-pound class and lower. They win at only I think it's like a 10% clip. Anyone at 35 years old, 35 years old at a championship level at 170 pounds or lower in MMA at the highest level lose at like 90% clip. It's absolutely insane. And fighting, I want to say, is a young man's game. I will always stand by that. Fighting is a young man's game.
Beterbiev's knockout streak ended at 38. Like all these things, there's just so many, like 38. Okay, so you're Phoenix, Arizona. Mike Tyson used to live and train there. Have you ever like bumped into Tyson or any other sort of fighters around?
I'm going to be honest. The only I ran into a lot of pro MMA fighters, and I think that's some of the jiu-jitsu open mats that I go to. I think that's just because the jiu-jitsu and grappling community is so much smaller. I have only met one pro boxer, and that was Trevor McCumbee. Trevor McCumbee, he lost to Caleb Plant and Diego Pacheco in his last two fights, got finished by Caleb Plant, and went a tough 10-round decision against Diego Pacheco. Trevor McCumbee, really nice guy. But that's the only pro boxer I've actually ever met and ever ran into. And if I'm gonna have to be honest with you, I think that may be for the better. I try to keep my biases away from when it comes to my money making. You know, I really don't want to meet a guy, say, dang, he's a really nice guy, and bet with my heart over my mind. So I'm okay with not meeting a lot of fighters until maybe eventually later down in my career, I can possibly interview fighters and things of that nature.
We've got Joe Parker, Fabio Wardley in a couple of months, right? Two of the nicest guys in the heavyweight division. I like them both. They're just totally cool dudes, and they're fighting each other. So, I mean, there's going to be no war of words in the build up to that one, but great fight. Early thoughts on that one?
I actually have the upset. I like Wardley, man.
Wow.
I think Parker is hittable. I think Wardley has shown me the gears and the grit and toughness to get through 12 rounds of fighting. And while I think in terms of pure boxing acumen, it's probably a 70-30 fight to where Joseph Parker could outbox his way to a decision. I've seen Joseph Parker get touched way too many times, and Fabio Wardley has such underrated crack at the heavyweight division. He may be a top 3 heavy hitter in the heavyweight division in terms of pure pound for pound power. We have to give Fabio Wardley all the respect he deserves.
Wow, I love it. Okay. I'm excited for that one even more. I've got a very good friend who is probably the best judge of boxing I've ever met. He's also with Wardley. So
that makes me feel pretty good for before my pre-tape. So I'm excited to break down that fight, quite frankly, a lot. I think that's going to be one of those fights that one could be a great moneymaker, but just in general, I think you can get great eyes on the heavyweight sport. Two guys that are maybe not the overly most known commodities, casual fans, but casual fans will learn after that one.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So what's the so again, going back over the years, what's the best fight you've seen? If you could get a casual fan to say you are going to love boxing, watch this fight, what would that be?
So is that live or is that over TV? Because that's, in my opinion, two different fights specifically.
I think give me both. Yeah.
Okay, perfectly. So if we're going live, it's Genesis Cervania versus Oscar Valdez. 2017, I traveled to Tucson, Arizona to visit a buddy that was at University of Arizona. He said, let's go watch these boxing fights. Oscar Valdez and Genesis Cervania went to a 12-round war. Both fighters got dropped multiple times. It was just absolute hell or high water. My eardrums broke from how small that tiny Tucson casino was. It was absolute war. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. A great one, though, man, that not a lot of people talk about. Ivan Baranchyk versus Jose Cepeda. Man, top-ranked war. Fight of the year, I believe, in 2021. It was a COVID-19 year. Five total knockdowns in this fight. If you have a chance to check out Jose Cepeda versus Ivan Baranchyk, please do yourself a favor. Go watch that fight ASAP. It's for free on YouTube right now. It's an all-out war. 5+ knockdowns. Absolutely incredible. Ivan Baranchyk versus Jose Cepeda. And watching live, like I said, Oscar Valdez versus Genesis Cervania. I love watching Oscar Valdez fight. It's sad to see him pass his prime, but I absolutely love watching him fight.
Love those. Like, clearly, no one's ever mentioned those ones before, and they're going on later today, putting those on. Okay, so do you have a you're obviously like very fond of all the boxers. Do you have a boxing quote? Like, is there something that a boxer said where you've just thought, I want to put that on a wall, or I got to remember that one?
Okay, it's as simple as it gets, and it's by the great Bud Crawford. We're going to see himself when he was facing Earl Spence, and we saw after the greatest performance ever. You're going to have to show me. As simple as that. Earl Spence and his team were talking, hyping, building up the team. Bud Crawford got in his face, told him very, very calm and killer-like. You're going to have to show me.
There you go. There you go. There's something about...
It literally makes my skin crawl how cold that is.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to have the loudest voice and the cleverest line. I love it. That's something about Bud. We'll see. Okay, so you talk about you're a movie guy. Is there some of the boxing movies, they do boxing so badly, but is there a boxing movie that you would recommend and you can put on repeat a few times?
The Fighter. I love The Fighter.
Yeah.
Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg's performances are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Growing up in an area that was harshly affected by drug use, I grew up in an area with a very high volume of drug use. It's actually top 10 in the United States, unfortunately, in drug use. So seeing the depiction that Christian Bale made as a drug user, I can't get over how spot on that was. The boxing depictions, I just love that fight so much. The Fighter is an incredible movie you can put on anytime and feel horrible and feel great at watching the same time. So I love The Fighter.
Agree, 100%. There's a scene where I watched it about a month ago. It's brilliant. There's a scene where, are you familiar with it? You watched it a few times?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a scene where at the end, because it's filmed like, they made a documentary about, who was it? Who's the brother? Ward. Ward's the brother, right? Mickey Ward. So Bale plays Ward's brother, who's his trainer. And there's and in the background of the movie, there's the documentary that they're making about the two of them. And there's a scene where you see them on the sofa, and Bale is with Christian Bale is with Mark Wahlberg, and it's just they're just the fondness between the two brothers is one of the best bits of acting I've ever seen. Christian Bale.
And I think that's why I love it so much is I am so close with my brothers. Unfortunately, my brother that's only 3 years older than me passed away 5 years ago. He was my closest friend and closest, companion in this life. So I think that actually you bring it up. One of the greatest points of why I love that movie so much is also the brotherly aspect of it that I guess just naturally I gravitate towards so much.
Wow. You must do. Yeah. I mean, that must be tough to watch. Yeah. Very sorry to hear that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that must be a very poignant thing to watch because that is such a strong thing of that movie. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up, but I want a couple more. What's the best ring? Who's got the best ring entrance you've ever seen?
That's a good question, mate. That's a good question. Costa Zoo used to have some awesome ring entrances, man. Costa Zoo used to have some awesome ring entrances. I'm going to say Costa Zoo. I'm going to stick with my old school. OG Costa Zoo. I'm forgetting the actual fight that it was. Could have been the Hatton fight specifically, but I'm missing the actual fight. So I apologize that I don't have an actual ring entrance off the top of my head.
No, we usually get Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks, so it's great to get something different again. So, and what would be your entrance music if you were out there fighting for a title?
It would have to be Kill Switch Engage, something Kill Switch Engage. So I would have to say As Daylight Dies by Kill Switch Engage. Amazing. I think that's an incredible song. You can make an incredible boxing montage with it as well. Okay. And it's just one of those songs that I think is great for any combat sports moment whatsoever. As Daylight Dies by Kill Switch Engage. That's going on my gym playlist tomorrow. And also, Nick, what has been brilliant about this hour with you is you've given up so much stuff to go and Google, which is amazing. We've got to go and look up so much stuff and do all our research. So, yeah, let's wrap it up. So what are you promoting then? Your Twitter, your X account, or your YouTube? Really, if you could just follow me and subscribe, more so subscribe on my YouTube, Breaking Bad Boxing. That's where I leave all my predictions, all my picks. My tape study is pretty linear, guys. I go in, I talk about the fighters, each fighter individually. I talk about the last 3 to 4 tapes that I watched. I give what I like and I dislike about the fighter, and then I give a final prediction. You can always feel free to skip to the end for the final prediction, as I know people's attention spans aren't that great. But Breaking Bad Boxing on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, give me a follow, like, share, all that good stuff. I'm always cracking tape, man. I absolutely love what I do when it comes to breaking down boxing. And I just really want to continue to give you guys the best possible predictions. The one thing about me is I'll always be authentic. I'll never give you a fight that I never watched tape on. I'll never give you a fighter that I'm not confident on. And I'll always tell you honestly if there are two sides of the fence that I'm leaning on. So if you have a chance, just give me a follow on YouTube, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Brilliant, Nick. And so do you have a rule for like how frequently? Is it 2 days before the fight? Sometimes it's 2 weeks before the fight. How does that work? I try to crack the tape. This is actually a flaw in my game. I need to crack the tape earlier. I usually get the tape cracking about 7 days before the actual fight. I'll usually drop my tape predictions anywhere from 6 to 2 days before the actual fight, which may not give the greatest leeway of time for people to drop it. For example, I'm going to be trying to, today I'm going to try to drop Brandon Adams versus Boachuk 2. I'm about halfway done with my tape study for that, 2 days before the fight. Probably not the great timing for view-wise, but at least I can give someone that's doing quick search something to drop and look at. So, yeah. Okay, brilliant. My final question, Nick, is
You talk about peace, love, and chicken grease.
Love, peace, and chicken grease.
What's that?
So I have a great buddy. Shout out to my boy Darion. I love this dude. He's just one of the purest souls I've ever met in my life. My buddy Darion, and he had this phrase, "Love, peace, and chicken grease," and I don't know why I've always gravitated towards it. And quite frankly, I'm just. If you meet me, you understand I'm a very loving person. The people that I love absolutely dearly, and I have no problem showing that. So really, I'm all about keeping things copacetic, love, peace, chicken grease. So shout out to my boy Darion for giving me one of my favorite phrases of all time. And, you know, one day I can't wait to see someone comment on my video, love, peace, and chicken grease. So,
Oh, man.
because then I'll know at that point that I've left a mark with somebody, you know. And the fact that you brought it up, you just made my day. You actually just made my day, mate.
Well, I'm sorry I got the order wrong, but it was the chicken grease that I had to get in there. So awesome, Nick. Look, thanks so much for your time. And like, honestly, like a couple of weeks following you, I've watched tons of your videos. Brilliant. Love all of them. You're making me like reevaluate how I place my bets and everything. And yeah, keep it going. You're going to smash it. Honestly, it's a brilliant channel. And we'll keep promoting you because, yeah, you deserve a really strong following.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you giving me the platform to come and discuss. I'm always open to talk with you anytime, whether that be about boxing or anything of that nature. Yeah. Make sure if you guys are watching to this point, please make sure to like David's video, leave a comment. Make sure you're sharing my boy's content too as well. So I really appreciate you, David. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, mate.
Great to meet you. Good stuff, Nick. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
See you, man.